have Karen back. Members Mac Carpenter and Ms. Frymire, we appreciate y'all being here. Are there any announcements need to be made at this time?
No new announcements from my end.
You think the judge will retire before he gets around making a decision?
We all may retire by the time.
Well, maybe he'll get to it one day. We would like for each and every person here tonight that plan to speak for this board, if you would, please stand, raise your right hand, and swear that the testimony you give is true. If you plan on speaking, please stand, raise your right hand.
Do you all swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter, you want to inform us on some issues that's been resolved?
Yes, sir. Mac Carpenter for the Planning Department, Carpenter. Mr. Chairman, we have 4 appeals on tonight's agenda, and we have successfully come to an agreement on each one of these issues prior to tonight's meeting. And thus, we would request on behalf of the county and the applicants that these items be withdrawn from the agenda. This would be item number 1, the Seacrest Pizza LLC 6COP SRX Director Determination Appeal. The item number 7, the Director's Determination for Parking in the Right-of-Way. We have a revised determination by agreement that resolves that appeal. Item number 8, we have, with a revision to the application, been able to approve the Bagwell lot split. And then item number 9, with a revision to the application, we have been able to appeal or approve that particular lot split also. I think there are representatives from each one of these appellants here tonight if you have questions for them also. But we would respectfully request those 4 items be withdrawn from the agenda.
The law firm of Shipman, Dunn-Out Shipman, was handling 2 of them or 3 of them?
3 of them.
3 of them? Is there a representative here? You good with everything?
Yes, sir. Melissa Ward with Dunlap and Shipman. Mr. Shipman is actually meeting with the county attorney at the moment, but yes, we've agreed to the conditions of 7, 8, and 9.
So y'all won't come back next month?
No.
Okay. very
God
good.
willing.
What about number 1? Who's here?
Oh, that's not me.
I don't think Mr. Allen or Steve Hall, his attorney, are here tonight.
That's been resolved prior to the
That has
meeting.
been resolved, and they've already picked up their copy of the agreement.
So what we need to do is make a motion to, we need to have a motion just to withdraw these for they have been concluded. We don't need to take any action on it. Can we do a motion? Can we do it?
If you just want to.
Can we do a motion? They can't come back ever and ever and ever?
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, all right. Nothing needs to be done on that. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, sir, and members of the board. This moves us to item number 2, the Henry Fireplace. This is a variance application. It's been reviewed by Keli Frymire. The applicant is here to present their request.
Okay, very good. Who's here? How about state your name for the record?
Members of the board, my name is Steve Henry. Actually, it's Glenn Stephen Henry. And I reside at 89 Sienna Court down in Redfish Lane off 30A. And several months ago, my wife and I thought about building a pool house. So we started that process with the Homeowners Association architect, and he pointed out that there was a utility easement. Actually, the developer of the Redfish Lane subdivision is here tonight. He actually developed the subdivision, and there's a utility easement that runs not at the very back of our property, but it runs about 15 or so feet from the property. None of the utilities use it except for the electric company. So I had Sunshine come out and figure out where the line was, and we marked it. I have photographs that I've submitted showing where the line runs. But basically, what we ended up doing was having a fireplace designed in lieu of a pool house. And the fireplace is designed to be just to the south of the electric line and utility easement that runs through the end of our pool. The fireplace will be constructed out of masonry, but the pool decking will be removable. It won't be mortared in. It will be placed on, I think it's called crush run. Anyway, it will be placed all the way back to the fireplace. And in the event that the electric company or the utility company needs to utilize the right-of-way, we can always pull up the pavers, whereas if we built the fireplace over the utility easement, we might have to tear down part of it in the future unless we backed it up. So the request here tonight, the application is for us to be allowed to move the fireplace back to where the rear of the fireplace is at 3 feet from the property line. I have, like I said, the developer, Tom Patton, is here tonight. He actually owns the lot behind us and has no objection and is happy to speak if you would like. And he also had, there's a requirement for a halo that the South Walton Fire Department approved pending the halo, and we've already cut down a pine tree that would be in the halo, and Mr. Patton has given us permission to trim back an oak tree a couple of feet so that it will not be in the halo of the chimney.
So in essence, you have a 15-foot ingress, sir. You have
I'm sorry.
You have a 15-foot utility easement.
It's 20 feet.
Actually, I believe
20
from
feet.
center, it's about 20 feet. Yes, sir.
And it's on the back of the property?
Yeah, well, it's between the south boundary of the property and the pool. And that's why we're requesting to back up the fireplace to where we're out of that easement, out of what's actually used in the easement.
So you want to put the fireplace outside 3 feet from the property line, put pavers in the utility easement?
Correct.
And it's a electric, water, sewer?
It's only electric.
Well, but it's worded for
Oh,
utilities.
Oh, correct,
So-
correct. In the event down the line, and we've lived there for 8 years, and nobody's ever come back there. But in the event of somebody needing to lay something, they could, if we were able to back the fireplace up and just have the laid pavers at the end of the day.
But you could put pavers at the easement for parking without a variance if you didn't want to build the fireplace. You could put pavers on the easement, right?
Yes, there are already pavers on the easement.
Already pavers on the easement.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm looking at the drawing that shows the pool area, and the existing pavers are already encroaching on the 20-foot utility easement. Is that correct? The existing
Correct.
pool and the existing pavers?
Correct.
Sure. Sure. Who's your carrier? Who?
So you're asking for the variance for the fireplace, but it looks like the existing pool shell and the pavers are already encroaching in that easement. This is Tom Christ's old house, is it not?
Yes, yes,
So all of that was existing when you purchased the house?
yes.
Where does the power line run now? Is it already under the pavers that are there?
Yes. Yeah, it's at least 4 feet below the pavers. And it's a main line that runs through the whole subdivision. And I talked to the electric company. I talked to Chalco about when we were thinking about doing the pool house. I said, could you, in the event that we built a pool house over it, could you just splice it on either end? They said, well, we don't splice a main line like that. So, and that's why we abandoned the pool house idea and decided to go with the fireplace.
I think the issue that Mr. Chick is referring to, you're already in violation in the easement by building the pool. That, to my understanding, is that what you're getting to?
Well, he purchased the house with the pre-existing violation. And I'm looking at the setbacks in the plat, and the house is hanging over all the setbacks all the way around. Strange.
Which
But now, let's just, we're gonna deal with the issue before us,
Okay.
I think. Unless you wanna deal with all of them and just have it,
Well, if we're gonna
now
give
just hang on a minute.
a variance to the fireplace, should we not just
Just
include
hang
the
on.
pool in that?
Hang on a minute. You're saying that the house is encroaching in the setback, is that correct?
Well, I guess I'd like to ask Mr. Patton a few questions about the setbacks.
May I say something? When I first filed with Ms. Frymire, I sent an old survey. I ended up getting a new survey from Ron Volker.
Paper is written.
And it was expensive. But anyway, on the, and I don't know how the house moved, but on the west side of the house, the survey I had previously showed that rather than being 20 feet back, it was like 19 point something. The new survey shows it being over 20 feet. Mr. Chicka, do you have the new survey?
I'm telling you, I don't respect Ron Walker's surveying and would not, I'm not going to go by his survey.
Okay.
I mean, all the issues we have before this board is his errors that he shouldn't even be licensed to do surveying. And, so, but I think, excuse me a minute, Mac.
Yes, sir.
Is a concern that the house is encroaching in other setbacks. Now, we can either let it ride and somewhere down the line it's going to get caught, or we can address it. Personally, I think we need to address it, and we need to address the pool. Because the pool is definitely encroaching into the easement. And I know that the county don't give a hoot about easements because they give them away, but I do respect the easement and the utility easements. They're there for a purpose. And I personally have a problem right now with his pool in the easement.
The garage, the driveway, the garage is violating the 40-foot setback.
40 foot.
The plat shows that this neighborhood was platted with 40-foot setbacks.
40 foot?
40-foot.
May Mr. Patton address that for
Let
me?
me get Mr. Carpenter's opinion first.
It appears that the house itself is sited within the setbacks for the main structure. Based on the documents that were provided, that show house setback and easement locations.
Is that
in-
Ron Balker's surveying?
No, ma'am, or no, sir, this is part of the, I think this is part of the plat.
It's page 2.
Page two of the plat for Redfish Lane.
So you think the house is in good shape?
We believe the house is fine.
Does the accessory structure have a different set of setback requirements in their covenants?
Let's get Mr. Patton. Mr. Patton, come up, state your name for the record, help us understand this, sir.
I'm Patton, Patton, currently residing at 404 Wilderness Way.
Do you have some questions for him?
Yes, I was just concerned that the existing pool and the existing carriage house and all the driveway pavers and whatnot were already encroaching into the easements. And I also noticed that the carriage house has a 20-foot setback from the street, but the plat shows a 40-foot setback from the street. So I was curious if there was, in the covenants and
Yes.
restrictive covenants, if there was a different set of setbacks for the carriage house.
Okay, basically Redfish Lane was created with very strict setbacks, but in the bylaws and covenants, we provided for variance provisions. The whole idea was to promote maximum side yards for people to have visibility. Now, in the meantime, all the trees grew up and you can't see anything anyways, but it was a great idea. The easement in question is only an electrical easement. The Chelco agreed to this location, and it meanders throughout the subdivision to save trees. And the understanding was that we would save trees, we put the electrical line, and then we come back and survey it and go 10 feet on either side. I think it was 10 feet, but so that's what we did. But we have creative positioning for all utilities. It's always been I've been in the business for 47 years, been on the planning commission for 14 years. I've never heard that you can't put a pool deck, not the pool logically, a pool deck or a driveway on a utility easement. It's your responsibility. If the utility has to tear it out, it's the owner's responsibility to bring it to reestablish it after they reestablish grade, but they don't have to put back in pool pavers or concrete driveways or whatever the case might be. And every subdivision, primarily, usually you isolate utilities to a right-of-way. But we all know that we cross, every time we go to somebody's house, we cross right-of-ways,
Right.
which is basically just another form of platted utility easement, if you would. So I can assure you that one, all the utilities known to man are in the subdivision. And that there's nobody else going to be in that with power easement, with the exception of power. We probably should have said it was power only, but there are other cases throughout the subdivision where power might coexist. And that every variance to the setbacks as established by Redfish, not by Walton County, but by Redfish Lane, has been properly vetted. It's a dual approval through the Architectural Review Board and through the board of directors to make sure we got a system of checks and balances. And we're very happy with the little 18-lot subdivision we have. As the owner, I'll just finish my spiel. As the owner of the lot next door, we are the only people who would see this fireplace, and we're totally supportive of it, and we think it will complement the neighborhood.
This drawing, I believe, shows that the pool is in the easement. Is that correct, Jeff?
It is?
It is. Not just the pavers, but the pool itself is in the easement.
That warrants investigation, but I don't think, it's really not germane to the issue at hand. And again, if pool deck, driveway, or pool, if they ever had to exhume it, Mr. Henry would have a real problem. Because it would be his problem, because he or his predecessor ignored the line. But I'd say unless it's actually over the line, they probably could still work around it. And these days, everything is done with directional boring anyway, so that easements are very transparent and negotiable. With a directional bore, you can go down 10, 12 feet and go underneath a pool or whatever.
Thank you. Jeff, anything else?
No, sir.
You have any questions? You have anything else to add?
Only that we've made it, that the 3 feet, the way the fireplace is designed with the seating around it, is as close to the utility line that is there without going over it.
Hayward? Sure.
It appears that the pool deck is over the east. But why are you trying to fireplace off? Why not put it on the easement too and not ask for a variance on your back setback? And to just set it all on, if it's okay to be on the easement.
It ain't okay to be on the easement.
Well, I mean, it obviously is.
Hang on a minute.
The actual electrical line is what we were trying to avoid in the event they had to dig it up. As of right now, they could come out with a backhoe and dig it up and not affect the pool at all. We'd just have to take up the pavers at the back of the pool.
Hayward, the issue apparently is that, my concern is that the pool encroaches. It encroaches into the easement.
Correct.
So there's, that's an issue needs to be resolved.
I think that's an issue between the property owner and the person that they provided the easement
You
to.
don't think it's a county issue?
No, I mean, unless the county had the easement, the county can enforce the terms of that easement. Otherwise,
Easement of record,
it is.
utility easement.
Right.
So it doesn't matter that his pool's in the easement?
Not for your purposes, because all we can do is provide variances related to the land development code and in
Land
this case,
Development Code
the
doesn't
setback.
address the pool?
No, I don't believe it does. I mean, I don't know that we would
You can
address it.
build a pool in an easement?
Mr. Chairman, today we would not allow the pool structure itself to be sited within the easement. This house was constructed in 1994 prior to the adoption of our comprehensive plan in 1996. In the comprehensive plan, there is a statement where the county commission determined that existing single-family homes were declared conforming for the purposes of the comprehensive plan and land development code being adopted at that time.
So the pool is not an issue, never will be an issue.
If they were going to build the pool today, it would be an issue.
But the pool is built. Now, what's gonna happen if he wants to rebuild his pool? Does he have?
Then he'll have to deal with the easement issue at that time. If he doesn't modify the pool, it won't be an issue.
We don't need to do anything to help him so he won't have no problems tonight on this, but something down the road, I mean,
Our thing is we can't modify the terms of that easement. That's between,
no, we can't modify the terms of the easement, but we can take and grant him variance on the pool while it's there, so it won't never be an issue for him.
I think that's what Mac's saying, is that unless there's a change in the structure of the pool, size of the pool,
Grandfathered
it's
in.
grandfathered
Or
in.
change of personnel in the planning department, or attorneys. I'm just trying to help him. If you don't think it's an issue, it's not an issue.
I don't think it's an issue, but I don't determine what your board does. That's within your purview. If you
Also,
wanted to add that, I
The other thing
don't have
is,
a problem with it.
The application is to only deal, with the setback as it relates. I mean, now if it's encroaching into the setback and we want to deal with, hey, we're going to address your pool since it encroaches into the setback.
I thought we could go outside the scope of advertising if it was something affecting the property to help the property owner. We can do it, they can litigate it, and you can defend it.
Well,
He
what I
doesn't
would
need the
recommend to the
variance.
board is we just deal with the issue that's been applied for, which is the setback, the rear setback, and the
I just know how complicated that the code is, the code and the building and the past and the present and what is interpreted then is different than what it is now. And if we can help him to find some relief, because personally, until there was testimony of this, I mean, I thought he needed to remove the pool, but if it was built in 94, I think we need to address it, and I don't see no reason why we can't address it to help the man, that, give him a variance on it.
well, I mean, From
He
what
was-
Mac said, I don't know that a variance is required, but
Grandfathered in. It was pre-1996.
Well, then I'm gonna drop my argument and move along. We will give you the opportunity to come back before the board to answer any questions that we may have from discussion from other people. So if you would, have a seat and we'll see who else has something to say.
Okay.
Are there anyone here that has anything to say in favor or against this variance?
sir, did you want to enter that, or is that yours? We'll just, he's going to enter it, I guess this site plan, this is a blown-up version of what we have. We'll just enter that as applicant's exhibit A.
Mr. Patton?
Just Tom Patton, I've already identified myself. I just wanted to say, it was lost in my other conversation, but I am supportive, and I think everybody else at Redfish Lane is supportive of this variance.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for speaking. Anyone else? Ms. Frymire? How you doing?
Oh, thank you.
Good.
Keli Frymire from the Planning Department. The one addendum item, South Walton Fire comments came in after I had uploaded my staff report for you. So that's item, I wrote a number 2 at the top, where the fire department did make a comment to make sure that there was appropriate clearance for the fireplace. And I'd like to enter that with my staff report.
So enter.
Sir?
County's exhibit 1.
Yes, sir. Which will be included into the staff report. We don't need to do a separate.
Right, that's with the South
Okay.
Walton Fire District technical review.
Okey-doke. Is that all you have to say?
Yes, sir.
What do you think about it? You think we should, shouldn't? You gonna give us guidance? You don't say much.
I think they have a complete application, and you can make your decision on that one.
One day we're gonna get her opinion. Thank you very much, Ms. Frymire.
You're welcome.
Mr. Nelson, is that correct? Sir? Henry, sorry about that. You have anything to add?
I would only add that the main purpose of the fireplace area and the pool house conceptually earlier was that my youngest daughter is getting married at our house in November, and we're hoping that if the board approves, that we can begin construction fairly quickly.
Make us feel guilty if we don't do this, that you're not gonna get married now?
Whatever it takes.
Well, I'm telling you, you throwed it all out there, right?
Whatever it takes.
All right, we
whatever.
don't want to hear anything else out of him. do we? No, go ahead. Are you done?
I am.
Motion to close the public discussion.
Motion to close public discussion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Motion to deny. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve it.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
You got it.
Thank you.
I was messing with him about denying. I knew he was not going to deny it. I just want to see the look on his face. Thank you, sir. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item before us tonight is item number 3. 50 Palms LLC variance. Who's here? Oh, my goodness.
I know it's me again.
Is this a good one, or is this a?
This
a
is
good-
really closely akin to what we've done before.
Well,
Stephen
now, hang
Tatum,
on a minute.
Matthews and Jones.
Don't you have 2 of them?
No, sir, just one.
Just got one of them.
Just have the one.
Okay.
50 Palms variance. This is closely akin to what we've done over in White Cliffs, actually, where you can kind of rely on the CCRs that are unexpired in a residential preservation zoning to grant a variance to the setbacks. My client's asking for, at its very closest point, a 7.9-foot setback. That would be on the southwest corner of her house. It goes all the way out to, I believe, 12.1 feet on the southeast corner of the house. This is in keeping with the CCRs, which allow a 6-foot setback. Just the Sea Highlands recorded CCRs. They were recorded back in 1994, this most original set, so they have not expired. The current homes on both sides, to her east and her west, the one to the east has a 5-foot 8-inch setback. The one to the west has an 8-foot 3-inch setback. So this kind of puts her in line because the coast runs from the southeast to the northwest, sort of in that area. So it puts her in line with the houses that are currently there. And technically, there is a house on her property that, if you look at the survey that was provided, it shows it. And apparently, the deck for that house is actually outside the property lines, and the back porch is inside the setback now on that house. So we're requesting that you approve the 7.9-foot setback. I did want to. There's some pictures in
That's
your.
on the back, on the rear setback, right?
Yes, sir, on the rear setback.
You asking for, all right, let me pay attention to what I'm doing now. You asking for a 7.9 reduction or total?
7.9 foot would be the
Actual
setback.
Setback.
Yes,
So
sir.
how much are you asking for a reduction?
Well, if I can do the math, what's that, 6.1?
Just to line it up with the other structures, because this doesn't go all the way to the mean high water
I
line.
can't do the math. It would actually be 8.1, wasn't it? 7.1, yeah, I can't do math. So I went to law school.
It don't matter, whatever you want us to do. Don't care if it's right or wrong.
I didn't actually expect that question, so I wasn't prepared for that one.
But you asked them for an 8.1 reduction in the variance on a 15-foot setback.
We're asking for a 7.9-foot setback. So yes, the reduction wouldn't be that.
8.1.
7.1.
What?
7.1.
We need Mr. Burgess here. Okay. Any questions?
I have some questions. Does this house have the 25-foot setback from the top of the dune bluff as a CPZ setback?
That is a great question, and yes, it does. Right now, it is, looks like it's 30 feet from the top of the dune.
Well, it shows a 15-foot building setback line, but
There was another drawing, I believe, that had that on it. I have to find that.
Exhibit E shows that.
What's your question? What's your concern?
I was looking for the CPZ setback, and they've got it called out on Exhibit E.
We're good with it?
We're good with that.
Any other questions?
And they will have to, of course, get their CCCL permits from DEP as well to be able to construct.
See if anyone else has any comments.
Right.
Looks like we have someone going to comment. State your name for the record.
My name is Heidi Ellis. I live at 263 Montgomery Street. I'm the neighbor across the street. I'm asking that you deny this variance. Last time I checked, these were properties with homes on them. They're not school children that need to be put in line. I'm asking you to stop these variances. This property is currently built in the middle of the coastal construction line. The coastal construction line was moved since 1946 to now. These variances need to stop. This property is currently in litigation to own the easements on either side of it. I'm concerned that if you grant a variance for this building, then they will try to say, when this litigation is completed, and they will own the easements on either side, that they will say, great, we own that property too. We're going to come before you and we're going to ask you for another variance to start building in the easements. It's not okay. I've lived in this neighborhood for 27 years. I have watched you make mistake after mistake after mistake in the Sea Island subdivision granting a variance. These are platted lots. They're well defined. They do not need to go beyond their current existing lot lines. Thank you very much.
Wait a
Sure.
minute. What's your last name?
Ellis, E-L-L-I-S. And I live at 263 Montgomery Street, directly across the beach from Kelly Mitchell.
Help me understand, help me if I understand this, Joe. When was this recorded, and what year was this recorded? 94. And it's my understanding that there was, in the restrictions of record that was recorded, had the setbacks in it.
That's correct, back in the original. But in this case, with Kelly Mitchell, since she will be demolishing the existing structure, okay?
Well, you see.
She will be demolishing, this will be a total demolition.
we understand
Therefore,
that.
she does not, if it's a total demolition in any other city in the United States, they would say, hey, look, this is a total demolition. You don't get grandfathered in anymore. You have to use the current existing building codes that we have in place.
Okay, as long as you understand that there is a recorded plat that shows the setbacks that the county,
Got them right here.
so that the county, up to the time Art Davis became legal counsel, recognized them, and they didn't have to come, but since we had an attorney that interpreted they had to get variances, and attorney's opinion changes from one to the next. So, you know, who's right? Is the attorney right, or is the previous attorney's
That's right.
record for 30 years?
And that's why I'm asking you to stop granting variances in the Sea Highlands subdivision neighborhood.
Okay,
There is too much litigation happening in that neighborhood right now. It does not need to have any building variances granted.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have anything to add? Well, let's hear from Mr. Carpenter.
This is similar to two other items on our agenda tonight. They both turn on a director determination issued by the former planning director, Wayne Dice, which stipulated that we were not allowed to use covenants and restrictions that had not been incorporated into our land development code. We were required to use the land development code covenants, land development code setbacks rather than the covenants and restrictions that might also apply to a particular property. The only things that we can use covenants and restrictions for are previous density and intensity approvals that were greater than what might be approved on a particular lot today.
Mac, the original house appears to exceed that 15-foot setback. What was the original platted setback for the rear?
Rear setback, since it's forward of the coastal construction control line, is determined by the Department of Environmental Protection.
The original
Now,
covenant
essentially,
setback?
the one setback that does apply is the coastal protection zone, and that's 25 feet from the toe of the dune. In this case, that has been complied with.
By a significant amount. They're probably another 15, 20 feet back from that.
Yeah, they're not proposing to encroach into the coastal protection zone, and we could not provide a variance to that.
Right.
But this is merely to allow them to use the covenants and restrictions for determining the setbacks rather than the current county land development code setbacks.
Look it up. Ms. Frymire?
Also on this one, the fire department memo came in, so that's put on your dais there as number 3, and no additional comments that would be pertinent to this, because we're not relocating fire hydrants or anything there in the street. So I'd like for that to be included with my staff report when we enter that into the record.
We'll introduce the staff report and the backup materials along with the South Walton Fire District Technical Review as County's Exhibit 1.
So enter. That's all you have to say?
Yes, sir.
Is it complete?
It is a complete application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want to come up and add anything?
No, I think we're basically covered. Just wanted to let you know this has nothing to do with any other litigation that may be pending out there. This is just, these guys want to build a house.
Don't want our opinion to help you in court?
Absolutely. Can I get it in writing?
You're good?
Yes, sir.
Motion to close the public discussion? Somebody needs to make a motion. Thank you. Second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion? Motion to approve as presented? Motion to approve with a 7.5 variance? motion to deny. Y'all do something. Come on, make a motion. We got 4 more to go. This is not difficult.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion.
Start with me.
If you want to say something, or do you want to vote?
Looking at the satellite view, it appears that all of the original homes in the subdivision were built to the setback line as determined by the DEP, as Mac said, and that the overlay of the county setbacks created a conflict with the historic setback for the neighborhood. Variance is for that conflict. And moving the house 7 feet back is not going to impair anybody else's view opportunity across the street. Doesn't change the side setbacks, but it brings it in line with all the other homes in the neighborhood, which, if we were to deny this variance, would put this house at a disadvantage compared to the people on either side of it.
Agree. Anybody has anything else to add? Motion to approve as presented. We have a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You got your variance. Next item on the agenda. Item number 4. Down Island Restaurant.
Chairman, Brandon Janka, Janca. I'm the owner of the property, and I have John Henderson's the civil engineer. He's with me, and he'll answer all the technical questions. Kelly, you want to go first, or you want me? Okay. Just real quick, I purchased the property in May. I had a pre-app meeting in July of last year where I was told that I could leave the side setback the same without needing a variance. I asked if I could get a variance anyway and was told that variances were in moratorium at the time. I didn't really know what moratorium meant, so I asked the planner what moratorium meant, or the county's definition, and I was told they were not accepting variance applications in the scenic corridor at that time, and he didn't know how long it would be until they would again. So I left thinking I was going to open a restaurant somewhere else. Went and told the owner I wasn't buying the property, and I got an email when I got home saying that I could leave the side setback the same from the planner and the planning department. So I purchased the property, and it took 10 months with the Small Business Association, and the next day I filed my application. 3 weeks later, I'm told that I have to get the variance. And not only do I have to get the variance, but now the side setback has been changed to 15 foot, which puts my new kitchen addition in the setback as well. I was told that that was going to go back to 10 foot because of a staff member's mistake in a chart. So I'm here today requesting a variance on the side setback of my existing building and the new kitchen addition. And I think Kelly can speak to the changes that are going to be made to the code back to 10 foot. And I have John Henderson here who can answer all the technical questions and the
On your side setback is 15 feet. Is that what they saying?
The new code, after it was updated, changed the 10-foot setback to 15. Was that a mistake, and it's going to be changed back to 10?
We believe that to be a Scrivener's error, and we will have a 10-foot setback and a 15-foot setback that will be based on height of building. But we will be going back and adding the 10-foot setback back, and it would apply in this particular case.
Okay, I'm asking the question, what is he asking for? Is he asking for if it's 10 foot, he's asking for 7.6?
He's asking for 7.6, and this house was, or this structure was originally a single-family home at one time.
And then
All I'm trying to do is figure out what the reduction is. Is it 3.4? Is it
Today's code, it's 15 feet is the requirement. He's asking to go down to 7.6 feet.
Is
But
he, is
isn't-
he on the 15-foot or is he 10-foot?
He's on the 15-foot today. In
Because an
the next
error-
code revision, that will be reduced to 10 feet.
Because the error that was made, he's into 10, he's,
No, sir.
What he's saying is the house.
He
is-
never had a
yeah.
10-foot setback. It was originally constructed as a single-family home and later constructed to, or changed to a business.
Dave's Glass House has been there for what, 20 years?
Yeah, it's
But
very, very old
The
structure.
existing structure would be grandfathered in to the existing placement and not need a variance to the side setback. Is that not correct?
That's likely correct.
So he doesn't need a
One-
variance
one-
for the
one at a
existing
time now.
structure. He only needs a variance to the kitchen addition in the back because it violates the current 15 feet that is going to be changed to 10.
Yes, but it has not been approved by the Board of County Commissioners to 10, so I think it is appropriate to consider a variance today.
Okay.
right. What you got to say?
I was gonna say what you said. The main structure is grandfathered in, it appears, and the reason he's here for a variance is because of his kitchen addition that he plans to put on.
Okay,
If the, excuse me, if the staff error wouldn't have occurred and it would still be 10 foot, I wouldn't have to be here today?
No, if you weren't putting an addition onto the property for your kitchen, you probably would not have to be here today.
Right.
Because you're putting that addition on,
That puts me in the
then
15.
that puts you.
But
where
I
you
see
need
your hardship being that you started the design with one set of rules, and then that, when they updated the code, all of a sudden you lost that 5 feet.
Well, I was basing all my, I think John and I were basing everything off of the email that we got saying that I could leave the side setback the same.
we're going to address your issue. I think we understand it.
Okay.
Now, it's my understanding you asking for a 7.6 reduction in the 15-foot setback to leave you 7.6 side setback. Is that correct? 7.4 reduction. 7.4 reduction. Are you in inches or feet?
Hang on. The existing structure does not need the variance. Only the kitchen addition needs a variance. It says it's sitting 11.7 from the side, so the variance.
I think with the issues that this man has had, it wouldn't hurt us to grant him a variance all the way down that side.
Okay.
I mean, you know, you don't want to vote for that if we get to that point, but, I mean, to me, you can see the frustration that he's had. And I think the time factor, I mean, let's not beat this dog to death when we're just trying to get it done and it doesn't matter. So I don't see where there's an issue. You have
Thank you.
anything else to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
consider making this conditional variance. That way, if there is an adjustment to the side setback and there's, that portion's ever reduced. So if they have 15 now and county staff is going to reduce it or change it back to 10, then if we're giving them a variant, then all of a sudden they may have a little extra, something to consider.
A little extra space for them?
What he's suggesting is that you
Right.
make the side setback
All the way down,
all the way down at
Okay.
7.5.
It's 7.5 regardless.
regardless what happens. Okay, understood.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that it's hard to take and do any business when there's misunderstanding about setbacks and trying to regulate, you know, exactly what everybody can do with their land. They still own the property, and we should let them use it. I mean, you know, we need to be a little more free about granting variances that help the business person spend the money. I mean, there's no need to just keep on. Anything else anybody else want to add? You want to add anything, sir? How about you, Ms. Frymire?
Sir. I do have a couple of items on this one. So It was my understanding that because they were doing all of the site construction, that they did have to ask for the variance request to bring the site into compliance because it was a non-conforming site with the commercial use and that setback. The current building being at 7.6 feet. Additionally, and I did put the note in, the kitchen addition today would be in that 15-foot setback. Most likely, in the next couple of months, when the development order is finished, that would not be non-conforming at that point if the variance was not granted, because that is well within the 10-foot setback. Let's see. This one also has a South Walton Fire technical review. It was item number 4 that I placed up there for you, and I'd like for that one to also be added into the staff report and entered into the record. And the issue with the setbacks in our land development code, in the previous version, we had a chart that listed non-residential structures, so whether that was multifamily or non-single-family structures. So it was either multifamily or a non-residential structure, kind of lumped them together. When we were revising that, the chart didn't take into account, we previously requested a height. So if you were under 3 stories, you could have the 10-foot. If you were above 4 stories, you would have the 15-foot setback. That kind of got condensed unintentionally when we adopted the revisions in March. So between his pre-app and when they made their initial submittal, that change occurred. And that is something that we are correcting and proposing to the board to be returned to its previous 10-foot and 15-foot.
How long is that going to take?
It's in process right now. We're expecting it to be at Planning Commission on the August agenda, and then first reading at the board in September.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
County Exhibit
County Exhibit 1.
Do what?
The South Walton Fire Technical Review letter says that it does not appear to meet their approval.
Yes, sir. They're currently in the development order process, and it appears to me that this memo is the same memo that was uploaded for the technical review. They're going to be at technical review committee next week on the 7th. So there will be comments that they'll have to address for their site plan at that point. But this was the first step to make sure that they would be able to move forward in that process.
So they would have to fix that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Come up and state your name for the record.
Good evening, John Henderson, Henderson Engineering. Yeah, I spoke to Sammy today, and he just wants a T-turn around where they can turn a vehicle around at the back. I drew that in today and shot him an email, so hopefully that'll be approved by tomorrow.
Anything else you want to add?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brunson? The guy that was speaking, what was that? Brannon. I was close. Do you have anything else you want to add? You're good with everything?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Motion to close the public discussion?
Motion to close.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion to approve the 7.6 variance request, 7.4, to give him 7.6.
Motion to approve the variance as presented with a 7.5-foot setback with a reduction of 7.4.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck with your restaurant. What are we down to? Item number 5?
White Cliffs.
White Cliffs.
Fan Cliffs.
What?
Fan Cliffs. Well,
State your name for the record, sir.
Frank Watson from Watson Sewell.
You was there last month, wasn't you?
Sir?
There last month or the month before?
No, I've been here before, but not lately.
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. Well, y'all were agreeable last time, so hopefully we're good tonight. This is kind of a replay of number 3. Essentially, we're just asking that we get a variance to be able to, I'm actually got the next one as well. In this case, there's existing structure that'll be torn down, but we just want to get a variance to be able to go by the covenants and restrictions, setbacks that are in the covenants and restrictions.
What year were they dated?
They were dated 1978.
1978.
Yes, sir.
So you asking, what are you asking for? Help us out here. You asking front setback go from 20 to 10?
Well, I'm asking that we just abide by the covenants and restrictions, setbacks that are there. Currently, the way they actually read, put in the letter there, but
It won't hurt to spell it out, will it?
no, sir. No, sir. Is 10 feet from the road front, 20 feet from the back unless it's a Gulf front lot, and this is a Gulf front lot. The back is established in the covenant restriction says established by the State Department of Natural Resources. Obviously, it'd be by the DEP in the coastal protection zone.
But now all you asking for is the front setback and the side setback. You're not, nothing's in your request on this. This is number 5. It says that you're asking front setback from 20 to 10, side setback from 7.5 to 5. Are you asking for a rear setback also?
I'm asking for the covenant restriction, the covenant restrictions just be abide by, that we can use actually what's in the covenant restrictions, which we specified based on the covenant restrictions that were recorded in 150 and 239. So if the actual write-up is slightly different, then maybe there is some variation there. But I'm asking for the covenant restrictions that are in place for Sand Cliffs just be recognized.
Need a rear setback.
No, sir, I don't. It'll be designated by the covenant,
Right.
by the coastal protection zone. We'll actually specify where that would be. And the side setbacks being 5 and the front would
Is
be 10.
this the same owner who objected to the Kaya Beach Club?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so I think I'm clear. You asking that we take and grant you a variance to go back to the covenant restrictions in 1978 Sand Cliff subdivision?
Yes, sir.
Declarations, which is, you have the OR book and page?
Yes, sir. The OR book and page, the actual covenants are 150. The book is 150 and the page is 239.
239. All right.
Got a question for Mac.
Any questions for him first?
Yes, sir.
I've done, I think, 6 houses in there on the Gulf front. I don't recall having to come for a variance on the front and side setbacks and Sand Cliffs. Is that a new?
Nobody knows you can get it, so they don't ask.
Well, I remember them giving blanket approval to the setbacks for roof overhangs are allowed to be 24 inches into all the setbacks, which were then 5 feet. So I'm under the impression that that's already been dealt with on a neighborhood-wide basis.
No, sir, it has not. We've asked the HOA to do that as an applicant on behalf of everybody out there because at some point these houses will be torn down and reconstructed, and I'm sure they would all like to be reconstructed to the covenants that they're parties to. But based on the director determination that prevents us from using covenants for determining those when they are less than the county's land development code setbacks, this is the appropriate avenue at this time for that. We've had several in this particular subdivision. Tonight we have 2, and each time we've asked that the HOA become a party to this so we can grant one subdivision wide through all of the different additions to the Sand Cliffs, but they have yet to come forward to participate in a blanket variance.
That has to do with contacting and notice of money, right? Ain't that what they say about White Cliffs?
It probably has to do with who pays.
Yeah,
and whether or not those that need it are paying the entire cost, or if it was going to be for everyone, one would think that they would all share in it pro rata, but
why don't the county recognize the hardship they cause and do it free of charge?
well, I don't think we're authorized to do that by the county commission. But we have strongly recommended that the HOA just join one of these applicants and ask for, you know, it to be applied subdivision-wide.
Let's move on. Yeah. You good? I'm good. Mr. Watson, we give someone else the opportunity to, anyone here in opposition? Anyone here supportive? You in opposition?
Todd Burke, Burke Law and Title, not in opposition, not in favor, need clarification. I represent the builder who has the application to build this home, and also is the neighbor, Kaya. So the line where the house is going to be built is Kaya to the east. I represent that developer, and also he's a builder who's going to build this home. And we just need clarification about, in particular, a section of the Land Development Code dealing with buffers, buffers between adjacent properties, general landscape buffer requirements, say in your code that they have to be 10 feet from adjacent residential structures. And we just need clarification from this board if the 10-foot buffer applies, doesn't apply. And the reason we're asking this is because if y'all are in favor of giving it a 7.5-foot variance, do they still, when they go to build this house, have an open issue with regard to the general landscape buffer requirements of 10 feet?
Put 10-foot buffer in a 7.5-foot area, would it not?
Sir?
It'd be hard to put a 10-foot buffer in a 7.5 feet. Is that correct?
Right.
They're asking for a 5-foot setback on that east side.
Right.
And this is where the existing structure sits from the boundary of Sandcliffs, is that correct?
Correct.
So at the time this subdivision was platted, there was no 10-foot landscape buffer requirement. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you're trying to apply a current development standard to a subdivision that's been in place for how many years?
Well, the previous planning director's decision to say the covenants and things don't apply changed the setbacks in this neighborhood from 5 feet to your county mandated 7.5 feet. And that's why they're having to come tonight and ask, when they did that, did they not also open up the property to be regulated by the general landscape buffer requirements too, that are also in the code?
Let's just hang on a minute. Mr. Carpenter, address the issue.
At the time this plat was recorded, there was no requirement for the 10-foot landscape buffer minimum that we're all familiar with. And because it's a platted lot in an existing subdivision that was previously approved by the Board of County Commissioners, we can't go back and apply that buffer now.
So you're saying he would not have to abide by the buffer?
There would be no buffer requirement on Mr. Mitchell's lot on
Proactively.
Going forward.
So you understand that? There's no buffer that will be applied to the issues that is before us tonight. If we send it back or grant the variance for the 1978 covenant record, there will not be a buffer.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Put that in our, it wouldn't hurt to put that in our final order.
Staff decision,
Well,
how they interpret the code.
There again, I don't trust things, and he wants clarification, and it won't hurt to put it in it. You good with that?
We'd like it to be in there. And then also, as it relates to Kaya, we were made to adhere to these buffer and setback requirements when we did that development by the applicant before you here tonight. And what we would like is the same rules that we have to live by at Kaya, we would expect this applicant to have to live by as well and honor setback requirements of 7.5 feet, if that's what applies in here per the county.
Now, what are you saying?
Can I?
No, I want some clarification. What are you saying?
Okay, so when I first stepped up here, I said that I represent the developer of Kaya and also represent the builder who's going to build this home. And you
Okay.
answered
We
clarification
cleared
about.
out the builder.
Yes, sir. When the developer was seeking to get their approvals for their development at Kaya,
Which is a totally different subdivision, is that correct?
it is the east boundary.
You speaking of a different subdivision that has nothing to do with this one.
I'm merely making the point that the rules that the developer over there were made to adhere to, strict adherence to the buffers and setbacks. We would, if we have to live by those rules, we would expect that the applicant here tonight would have to live by them also.
So you don't want us to grant the variance to the 1978?
Correct.
You're in a heck of a position, man.
Can I ask how Jason ended up being the builder for this house if the guy was suing Kaya next door? How did this house become a Romare design build project? Was there some kind of a settlement?
Yeah, part of the resolution of, the development and.
But does that guy know that you're in here protesting the design of the house that Jason did?
Here.
Yeah, come on, man.
Take over for a minute. We're not actually trying to prevent the variance. The reason I'm here is because I am the builder, and the Mitchells have been, we've been in lawsuits. So I just need clarification on where I'm building this house. If there's a buffer and I'm gonna build a house in it, I need you guys to say
Just
that.
hang on a minute.
I need you guys to approve that.
We done cleared up the buffer.
Okay.
You here protesting the variance. He said that he is against the variance that we're
Well-
going to grant for the 1978 Covenant of Records. Now, you addressed that, but we done address the other. So why are you against it?
Well, look, we came here to get clarification on the buffer, because when we came in here,
How's
you
the buffer
guys,
cleared?
excuse me?
We're clear on the buffer.
Yeah, so we showed up here, and from my understanding is, since the covenants and restrictions are the only thing that was applied in 1978 until the Land Development Code and Comp Plan came out, today, they're here to enforce the comp plan. I mean, the Land Development Code. They're here to get a variance for the Land Development Code. We are curious as to why we're applying one code and not the other. That's the only question we really came here for, because you're saying that they need a variance for the Land Development Code. That's what we've read in the report. But we've also read the comp plan, and it says that buffers are required. As the builder, I want to make sure that I put this house in the right spot, because if I don't, and I can't get a variance for a comp plan mistake, I'm going to get sued. So there is a comp plan. Mr. Carpenter said it's not applied. You said you're going to put it on the record. And that's really all I need. As far as the issue with the variance of 7.5 or 5 feet, look, I mean, I get that for interior lots, but this is a situation where it's a lot and I'm the neighbor on the other side and I'm not a part of their covenants and restrictions. I'm not here to dispute that. That's y'all's decision on whether or not you want to grant them that variance. It's not my decision to deny it or anything like that. But as far as the comp plan goes, I know that there aren't any variances allowed to the comp plan, and I know that the comp plan says that a 10-foot buffer shall be applied.
Like I said earlier, we done and dealt with that issue, and we're going to deal with it. We're
Okay,
gonna
well,
have
if you
you
put
build
that on the record, that'll
We're
certainly
going to put it on
protect
the
me.
record, I can assure you. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any
Jason Romare, R-O-M-A-I-R.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
I got a question for Jason before he leaves.
Well, make it,
Jason.
make it quick.
So what Todd said was that you still have a concern about the setbacks, not the landscape buffer. They're concerned that if we grant a variance to the 7.5 to make it 5, that there was an issue with Kaya next door not having the same privileges.
Yeah,
He done said that he doesn't have an issue with it. He said the reason he was here before us is because he was concerned about the buffer, he wanted to build a house. He just
Can
got
I answer
through
the question?
saying that he wasn't too concerned about the 7.5 to the 5. I don't want to sit here all night and beat this thing back and forth. So if you want to answer it, answer it.
yeah, I mean, I think Todd was trying to get clarification on what the actual land development code and the comp plan says and make sure that the laws were applied equally to Romare Construction, Kaya Beach Resort, and Mitchell Brothers. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone here for it? Anyone here against it? Y'all want to say something? You want to come back and do, have we heard from staff? Let's hear from staff first, Mr. Watson.
I just wanted to make sure we entered our staff report into the record. And I put the setbacks in for the front and the side for clarification, and drew them out of the ordinance. So that was, I guess, an error that if we're gonna just have them follow the ordinance, I just wanted to make sure that in the staff report you knew what we were moving from and moving towards.
The thing about the side and the front doesn't list the rear, and the rear value, it changes, location-wise, so.
Correct.
I was good with the subdivision declaration and covenants, and that should clarify everything.
Yes, sir, and I'll make sure I include that language in moving forward, and that would be my error on that one. I just wanted to make sure we had all of the changes that would be adopted differently clear, so that you'd have that in front of you for review.
Should we not attach those copies to the final judgment, final order?
We can if that's what the board likes. I mean, I believe
I think it'd be add clarity.
we'd either do that or add the book and page number as indicated, but we can do that.
Go ahead.
For the page number, we've already,
No, we have that, OR book, 150 page, OR 150 book,
239.
page 239.
Like you said, we can,
We would attach
draft the order based on how it's resolved. We can add that.
anything else?
No, sir.
Please,
It is a complete application. Yes, sir.
so entered it.
Sure. Thank you.
County Exhibit 1. Mr. Watson.
I just wanted to address that. I know that the planning department has a very tough time, and things kind of change over the years. Wayne Dice's position on how to treat covenants and restrictions. While he was here, his tenure and how his position was at that point, you don't apply them. And now I think the current position is, hey, we're willing to apply them, but you need to ask for variance. And that's all we're doing. Simply trying to, under the current code and how we're treating this, is asking for variance based on the covenant restrictions that exist in 78. And I appreciate Mr. Romero's position, but we are trying to apply the laws equally, and this is a subdivision just like number 4 that y'all approved earlier and should be approved under those circumstances versus a new development that actually has to be done today under today's code. I can understand, but anyway, that's just it. I appreciate your time, and
Motion to close the discussion.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 5-foot setbacks with the exception that the boardwalk that's shown on the east side of the property be removed so that what is left is considered a landscape buffer.
Now, the applicant is requesting that that the county adopt the 1978 San Cliffs covenant record. Is that your motion?
I'm wanting to,
Make
yes,
it conditional.
make it conditional, though, that there's an existing boardwalk in the 5-foot setback that needs to be
I just
removed.
want to be clear, you said you would make the motion for the 5-foot setback,
Yes, sir.
but not just the 5 foot, it's the whole declaration of covenant.
Correct.
With your with your condition of the boardwalk. If that's your motion. I'm just trying to make sure we cover everything, because that's why we're gonna get interesting. And in your condition, in making the motion, would you agree that what we suggested a while ago, what was that?
But landscape.
Buffer. That there's no buffer applies since we're going back to the 1978, that this buffer will not apply.
There's no landscape buffer, but I don't feel that keeping the existing boardwalk in that 5-foot setback.
I'm not talking about the boardwalk. I'm talking about clarity on the buffer to build a house. You know, they wanted a 10-foot buffer and a 5-foot setback. And Mr. Carpenter said there is no buffer required if you go back to that.
Can we not just have Mac's comments on the record that that does not apply in this instance? Does it need to be incorporated
I
into
think
our
it needs
motion?
to be in the final judgment, because people forget things that down the road, and who knows what may happen when Mr. Carpenter's gone and the legal staff gone and we're gone. I think there need to be clarity, and I don't see where it would hurt to put it in the.
Well, then I would recommend that the 5-foot setback actually be a 5-foot landscape buffer.
Well, if that's what you want to do.
I think that.
But how you gonna?
That
get
way
that
they don't
worked
put any equipment or pool equipment or air conditioning equipment on that side and that 5-foot setback.
So what's your motion?
My motion would be to allow the 1978 Sandcliff subdivision declaration of covenants and restrictions to apply their setbacks to this house, with the stipulation that the 5-foot setback be considered a 5-foot landscape buffer where no additional encroachments are allowed on that 5 feet.
And that the 10-foot landscape buffer does not apply.
Per Mac Carpenter's recommendation.
Karen, did you get that? You gonna second it? No, sir, we'll close it. Discussion? You want to discuss it?
I think the rationale behind it's pretty clear. That there is no buffer there. There should be a buffer there. All the other homes in the neighborhood have 5-foot setbacks, so the reason for allowing that on this lot is clear. But in doing that, I don't think they should be allowed to continue to use that as anything other than a landscape buffer. They have a boardwalk that accesses the Gulf on the southwest corner. So currently, they don't show any of the equipment in that area. I think it should be removed.
Anyone else? In the 5-foot landscape, that will allow them to get in there and work on the house and all that stuff. It doesn't have to be trees and et cetera, right? Just have to be landscape, right?
For clarification, Mr. Chair, would that be just on that east side?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the condition would be side setbacks would be reduced to 5, but you asked that the east side setback be treated as a landscape buffer.
Correct.
The other side would not have that same condition.
Correct.
Okay.
Because it ends up creating a 0 setback for a whole subdivision up against another subdivision. This boardwalk here allows this house to make use of that 5 feet with no landscape to buffer it from the Kaya project.
Okay.
For that clarification, Mr. Huggins, do you still second?
Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody opposed? You got your variance on the first one. Did you understand the variance? You act like you're confused.
No, sir, I understand the variance.
How about you, ma'am? Pardon me? Are you up for the second one? You want to start?
Yes, sir.
That's item number 6.
Mr. Chairman, we're requesting the same variance with regards to Lot 25, the property next door to the west of the Mitchell residence. This is Mrs. Carver's residence. Exact same request. She has a pre-existing structure. It's all built within the 5-foot setbacks on the side. It was built according to the covenants and restrictions that were existent since '78, and we're just asking for a variance so we can have that structure be considered conforming.
You gonna tear it down, or does it stay?
No, sir. No, sir, it's staying.
Already built to the 1978 covenants of record, and you want us to adopt those so it's within compliance?
Yes, sir.
That's
Exactly.
what you're doing.
Yes, sir. It was built in 2004. It's had a couple of remodels, 2007, 2014. It's my client's permanent residence, and we just want to make sure we don't have any issues moving forward.
Any questions?
I thought that these are grandfathered in according to Mac.
Well, in that particular situation, we've got permits that were pulled. There was just no real documentation. We just wanted to make sure and clear that we were okay with it.
The remodel on the house.
Yes, Ms. Carter just wants to make sure.
Since
that
I
we
was
don't
the
have any problem.
architect on that remodel, would I have to recuse myself from voting on this variance?
I think you're fine voting on this variance.
I was the architect for the remodel of the house. I mean, everything was already approved and built.
Did they cuss you when you left, or were they happy with you?
So with that being said, if you don't have any special gain, whether it's financial or your business or any family member, participate.
Okay.
Ms. Noyes, you got something to say?
What, better safe than sorry?
Well, what she was bringing up is there, a previous board member, there was an ethics complaint, kind of same situation. She was just indicating that she wanted to give that advice. So if you feel that you may have a conflict, then yeah, there's always a way to just recuse yourself. Yeah, and if that's the case, then you just can't participate at all. No comments, no anything.
Boy, that's a relief. We don't have to listen to them
Now, we'll point out as well, which we didn't do it at the beginning of this meeting, is with that being said, you would have to have a unanimous vote because you would only have 4 participating board members.
I think they're in good shape. What do y'all think?
Well, I mean, does the applicant? Okay. So you understand that, okay. And you would like to proceed forward with that? Okay.
Go ahead.
My question is, I mean, maybe you said it, but I didn't understand it. Why are you asking? Existing, everything is in place.
He just want to be safe. He don't want
Safe
no
from
issue
what, though? I mean,
from,
what?
from,
Down the future, in the future, doing something different with the house and you got it.
No, if, technically, my understanding, if we came in and asked for a remodel permit today, the planning department would actually ask for a variance in order for us to remodel the house because technically it's built to the 78 covenants and restrictions, and you would need a variance rather than be considered a conforming structure. And so all we're trying to do is tie up loose ends that, quite frankly, should You're already tied up, but I mean, there's,
That'll never be an issue.
yes, sir, I mean, that's it. We're just trying to take care of, since they're both side by side, we're trying to take both properties simultaneously. Yes, sir.
It sounds like it's more preemptive than anything.
100%.
Anybody else has anything to say? Ms. Frymire?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to enter the staff report, the same comment about not including the book and page number, but physically writing out what the requested setbacks. I did that on this one as well. But that was the 150, page 239, the same as the other. And that's all.
Landscape buffer also needs to be addressed in this, or it doesn't apply? Does it apply, don't address it, right?
It's not abutting the tie-up.
There wouldn't be a landscape buffer to apply on this particular interior lot.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So entered County Exhibit 1. You
You
need,
said there would not be or would be?
Would not be.
Mr. Watson, you want to, anything else to finalize?
That's it. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Motion to close the public discussion.
Motion to close public discussion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve as presented with reverting the setbacks to the 1978 Sandcliff subdivision declaration covenants and restrictions recorded in book 150, page 239.
Second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, on this one, since we're going to add the covenants and restrictions to that order, would you like that done on this one as well? Okay.
Thank you for reminding me. Boy, it's quiet without Jeff. All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You got your variance. Is that our last one, or we have one more?
That is the end of our agenda tonight, Mr.
Those
Chairman.
are moving out here, let's say. You had an opportunity to look at the minutes. Need approval and signature of the minutes, April 25th minute. We're not done yet. We're not done. We got to vote on the minutes.
Okay.
Motion to approve the minutes, April 25th, 2019.
I think I did read those, they're good.
Second. All in favor,
Second.
aye?
Aye.
Approved with corrections. This is May 23rd. We have some corrections. You read them? Sure you did. Motion to approve. Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
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 We're done. Now you can finish. Phew. The architect that did the fireplace?
Yeah. That's her.
I didn't know that. At,